Hello there, this is Business Point on Global Television in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The program focuses on businesses and economic policies, market trend, small and medium-scale businesses, investment, sector-critical analysis, and latest events and developments that are shaping the economic landscape of Nigeria and beyond. I am Kikelomo Okeri, your host. On this edition of the show, our focus is on tax policy framework. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, says the Nigerian fuel subsidy removal policy and foreign exchange on unification initiative to translate to economic growth and stability. The federal government must collect more taxes to fund the national budget and pay public debts. Joining me in this studio today to make sense to this issue is Johnson Olugbenro, lead partner, Blue Line and Associates Limited. He will be sharing his insights on how best to make tax policies work in Nigeria. We will take a short break now. When we return, we will begin the conversation. Don't go away. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Business Point on Global Television. We're on Star Time Channel 276. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu recently moved to raise tax revenue, which is a long overdue national assignment. He recently established a committee to reform Nigerian tax administration with a target to double the collection rate within the 3 years. President Tinubu expressed worries over the government's loss of trillion naira annually to inefficiency, corruption, and evasion. It is tasked to achieve a tax to GDP ratio of 18% by 2026. Nigeria is far beyond the continental and global ratio, and the government, which refuses all pressure to reduce the cost of governance, has resorted to borrowing. Nigerian debt profile was 46.25 trillion naira in 2022. The Debt Management Office says reform will raise revenue and reduce borrowing, while debt serving gulp 96% of revenue. Despite the initiative saving made from fuel subsidy removal by the federal government, over 90% of government revenue still goes into debt servicing, leaving it with a meager amount to cater to major economic growth and development projects. However, the International Monetary Fund says Nigerian policymakers must urgently complement the fuel subsidy removal with a set of policies that could ameliorate the economic challenges facing the country. Adding that there is need to tightening the monetary policy so as to mobilize more tax revenue, saying holistic package of reform is needed. In my introduction, I said today's episode is dedicated to discussing tax policies in Nigeria, the impact on revenue generation. With me in the studio is Johnson Olugbenro, lead partner, Blue Line and Associate Limited. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. You're welcome to Global Television. Sir, let's set the ball rolling. What is your take on the IMF resolution advising the federal government of Nigeria to increase tax generation so as to sort out debt in Nigeria?
That's $1 million question. And it's not the first time that IMF has made this kind of proposition. You have to look at it critically. There are aspects of it that some of us agree with, and then there are other aspects that, in my own view, they may need to reconsider. By and large, right, what everybody agrees on is the fact that we have a revenue problem in the country. That's a fact. There is urgent need to increase the revenue collection. Prior to 2021, as you already know, it will interest you that the tax to GDP ratio in Nigeria was dwindling around 5-6%.
That's right.
IMF even put it at 7.5 sometimes earlier in the year. That's even for 2021. And around May also this year, the prior FRS chairman, in collaboration with some other agencies, came and did a revision and said, okay, you know what, they didn't include some revenues from certain quarters, and after all the other revenue that they included from custom, from state revenue board and all of that, they came to about 10.8%. That is still very, very low. And like you said in your introduction, the goal of this administration, which they said by 2026, is to ensure that, I mean, before I even get to that, so Nigeria is 191 in terms of tax to GDP ratio, out of 193. So you can score it yourself. We're doing very poorly. 191 out of 193 countries. That's very bad. And we wish them well. And so the goal is we need to definitely do better. However, what we don't agree on is the method, the approach. So IMF is suggesting that increase the rate of taxes, introduce more taxes if possible. And we some of us practitioners feel that is not always the way to go, because you can't keep throwing taxes at every issue. So you have a problem in a particular sector of the economy, and then you come up with a kind of tax just to deal with that issue. So it's almost like a fire brigade approach. And of course, one of the things that they reference in their report, talking about VAT, for instance, and the argument is Nigeria has one of the lowest VAT rates in the world. And I don't like that narrative because for so many reasons, our VAT system doesn't work in Nigeria. One of it is the fact that you can't even reclaim some of the input VAT that you have suffered in the course of your production, which is an anomaly compared to what is obtained elsewhere in the world. Okay, so I have suffered input taxes, which I cannot reclaim. I mean, the allowance for what is reclaimable is quite narrow. And even at that, the platform on which you have to reclaim those taxes, if you're familiar with the Tax Pro Max platform, you can't even put it in voluntarily. It may also interest you to know we have all manner of numbers depending on which list you are checking and when did you check last. Okay, we have at least what nobody disputes. We have about 55 type of taxes that you're supposed to pay, which cuts across the federal government, the state government, and the local government. You know, and more recently, we even 7 more has been introduced. So that brings the number to about 62. And so let me paint a scenario. Imagine an employer that has offices like financial institutions, for instance. They have offices in all the states of the country. Now they have staff in all of these states of the country. And for each of the staff, they have to generate a tax ID for each person. And it is such that if I am in Lagos, I mean, you can't use your Lagos tax ID in Abuja. You can't use your FCT tax ID in Port Harcourt. So you have to do all of that. Even for the organization itself, the organization also has to generate their own tax ID for those state revenue collection agencies. And that just makes it very, very complex. So if you have issues of transfer, somebody is transferred from Lagos to Port Harcourt, sometimes it's a very long process. So we are saying, can we improve on the ease of collecting the existing taxes? Can we harmonize the type of taxes? I was very happy at the ICANN conference that held last week. You know, Mr. Oyedele was there in person, and he did reiterate that, you know, their goal actually is to reduce these taxes to 10 or below. That would be a good news. You know, so you need to harmonize the kind of taxes that people have to pay. You also have to harmonize the collection agencies. And by the way, when I say 55 or 62, that also excludes the non-state actors. People who will grab you in the middle of a corner and tell you, come and pay wheelbarrow tax, come and pay. It will amaze you to know, as in taxes that are not approved by any legislation. Somebody just hold you in the middle of the corner, a poor man who is just trying to survive, they hold him and say, you have to pay wheelbarrow tax. And if you don't pay, they will remove the tire, the wheel.
But there has been a great concern that there are loopholes in tax collection. How do you think the federal government can address this?
So data solves a lot of that type of problem. Of course, there are a lot of loopholes. Apart from the fact that a lot of people are not within the tax net, even those that are within the tax net are not even paying the correct amount of taxes. So there are a lot of loopholes. And apart from data, one other thing that has been helpful in recent time is digitization of the process. So recently, in the past few years, even during the last administration, they started, introducing various digital solutions to address the issue of taxes, to ensure that the taxes that are even being collected is getting to the government, is getting to the government purse. So I think those kind of things will help to bridge that gap. There's a lot of gap, particularly people within the informal sector. If you remember recently, the FIRS also went after the informal sector, and they said they wanted to partner with them and ensure that people don't take advantage of them. And we welcome that idea, but I haven't seen any report to be able to evaluate how well that is helping them.
Issue of multiple taxation has been a major concern to business owner in Nigeria. What is your impact on this? Because it has been a great challenge for business owner in Nigeria.
Yeah, so of course, it's even for someone who is not a tax practitioner, everybody can almost, tell what some of the impacts are, depending on who you are and the kind of business that you do. The first thing is that what it does the most is that it discourages investment. Nobody wants to put their money, investors want to put their money where they are going to get maximum returns. But when I have to deal with, at times, it's not even the fact that you have multiple taxations. Sometimes the problem is even the ease with which you even have to pay those taxes. It's so annoying the way what the average business owner has to go through. So you want to import something, you are dealing with customs, you are dealing with FIRS, you are dealing with different kind of regulators, and so on and so on. So at the end of the day, you also will have to factor in the cost of those things into the production. So before you know it, you are going to be selling at a much higher price than you would have if you were paying less taxes. I've heard one of the billionaires in the country, lamenting that particular year he has paid over 55% of their revenue in taxes and levies to different regulators. So you expect them to now, from the remaining 45%, if what he was saying, I didn't verify it. So imagine you having 45%, and that's where you want to pay your salary, that's where you want to deal with your overhead and all of that. It's crazy. So it discourages investment.
All right, so we'll take a little short break now. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Business Point on Global Television. We are discussing tax drive, policy trust, and the impact. And with me in the studio, we have Johnson Olugbenro, lead partner, Blue Line and Associates Limited. Sir, how do you think taxation impacts foreign investment in Nigeria?
So I think that was the point I was making earlier on. So when production when production is taxed unnecessarily, which means that you make it difficult for people to even produce. One of the things that I loved about when the recent tax policies were going to be rolled out, one of the things that the spokesperson to the president at the time said was that the goal is to tax consumption and not to tax production, and that's very key. So what unnecessary taxation, or what I prefer to call irresponsible taxation, what it does to the production sector is that it discourages production. You don't make it so difficult for people to produce. Make it as easy as possible. The tax policies should be enticing in such a way that, where possible, even give waivers and encourage certain industries, to grow. And then when the industry is booming, then you can tax consumption. Most people don't have problem paying taxes on what they consume, but when the production process is overtaxed unnecessarily, it discourages, because that means that I will now need more capital to venture into that kind of business than I would have ordinarily needed if those provisions were not there. So
how best, in your own experience, how best do you think these challenges in taxation can be addressed?
Well, I believe they are, in all fairness to the administration, I believe they are already taking some good steps in that direction with the new committee that was formed, being headed by Mr. Oyedele. And I've also said they need to improve on the ease of taxes, ease of paying of taxes. They need to harmonize the revenue collection agencies. They need to harmonize the tax types itself. And if possible, let everybody just ask one tax ID. I can walk to any part of the country and transact with that tax ID, rather than me having to deal with different state boards and all of that. Those are some of the things that they can do in the immediate.
Okay, lastly, sir, what are some possible ways that Nigerian government can leverage on tax revenue so as to promote the economic growth?
One of the things that they should do as a matter of urgency is that they need to win the trust. The policies should be predictable. They need to win the trust of the general public. I give you one instance quickly. You remember that when this new administration came in, they had to suspend certain legislations, because those provisions, the provisions of the Finance Act 2023, for instance, there were certain things in the provision in the Finance Act 2023 that was against our national tax policy. And for instance, the national tax policy says you need to give people at least 90 days window if you are going to revise an existing tax law or you are going to revise it. And then the act was signed on the 28th, a day before handover, which is supposed to be the effective date of the act. The act itself says the effective date is 1st of May. And then we Nigerians didn't get to see the act until after handover, sometimes in June. So we're confused. So you can't plan with it. Thank God that the president rightly came and then, gave us that soft landing and said the effective date will now be 1st of September and all of that. So once the system is predictable and they can win the trust of the people, and people can also see accountability on the part of government, I believe that it will increase more of voluntary compliance.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson Olugbenro, for sharing your insight with us. Pleasure. Really appreciate your coming to Global TV. Moving on, Nigerians are of the opinion that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should be different in his grand plan to replace borrowing with tax revenue. Will only succeed if he doggedly implements the recommendation of the presidential panel and prosecute tax dodgers. Reforms should include an end to unnecessary multiple taxes on businesses, be technology driven, and embody harsh penalty against defaulter. On this note, thank you for joining us, and also all our social media contributors will say thank you once again. Till we come your way again, I am Kike Lomo Okeri. Thanks for staying with us.